Hi, this is Dr. Mark Hitchcock. I want to welcome you to Marking the End Times, a program that's designed to help you understand what's happening in our world today in light of Bible prophecy. And on today's program, I want to discuss something that's on everybody's mind right now. You're hearing about it if you're watching any kind of cable news or anything on the radio. All we're hearing about right now is UFOs and the possibility of extraterrestrials because of these objects that have been shot out of the sky over Canadian and U.S. airspace just here in the last few days. So I want to dig into that and look at what's happening and talk about some biblical and prophetic implications of this that I think are very significant. So a program I think you're going to find fascinating. And then kind of as a follow-up to some of the things I'm going to say I want to follow up in the subscriber-only section. I want to answer some questions about Satan and demons, about demonic activity. You know, where do demons come from? How many demons are there? Does the Bible say anything about demonic activity increasing in the end times? So we'll talk about that in the subscriber-only section. So I want to talk about what everyone's talking about right now, and that is these objects that are being shot out of the sky. I mean, in the past 10 days, as you're all aware by now, a series of flying objects have been shot down from the sky by the U.S. Air Force over the U.S. and Canada. I've seen things in White House briefings and military press releases I never thought I would see or hear. The things we're seeing on television right now remind me of something from an extraterrestrial movie or a movie about an alien invasion, where you have White House press secretaries talking about aliens and UFOs and extraterrestrials, and even high-ranking military officials addressing these things. It really is like watching a movie about what's happening. Here's just a brief timeline, though, that I want to begin with of these shoot downs. It all started with February 4th on the South Carolina coast. A Chinese, or what's been identified or called a Chinese spy balloon, was shot down after it basically traversed the entire mainland of the United States. And it was shot down at an altitude of 60,000 feet, finally, after going across the whole United States. That was followed then very quickly by the downing of 3 what they're calling UFOs. They're identified flying objects. They don't know what they are yet. These are in more modern times, these are called now UAPs, which is unidentified aerial phenomena. But the second one, or the first one of these UFOs, was February 10th up in northern Alaska. It was shot down at an altitude of about 40,000 feet. Then on February 11th, in the central Yukon in Canada, an object was shot down at about 40,000 feet, and it was described as a cylindrical object. It was cylinder-shaped. So really not anything like the balloon that had been shot down over the South Carolina coast. Then on February 12th, the next day, over Lake Huron, what was described as an octagon-shaped or an octagonal object with strings hanging off of it was shot down at an altitude of only 20,000 feet, which, again, airplanes fly around 30,000 to 35,000 feet, commercial airliners. So this was below that, a lot lower than the others. Now, what's interesting about this to me is the first missile that was fired was unsuccessful to hit it. Now, that seems strange to me because they're saying that these objects are slow moving, that they have no observable or discernible propulsion mechanism. So if something's just kind of sitting there in the air, it seems strange that this stationary or slow moving target would be missed by a missile. Now, I guess that's possible, but I hope our pilots are much more skilled than that they could hit an object that's basically a sitting duck. So that makes me wonder about what they're saying about the maneuverability and other things about these objects. Someone has said this in a recent article. They said, the 3 most recent objects differed in size, maneuverability, and other characteristics from the suspected surveillance balloon shot down February 4th off the South Carolina coast. So these other 3 are very different in a lot of ways. Now, up to now, we have really very little information about the true nature or the identity of these objects. And of course, the longer that the lack of information goes along, that's going to fuel all kinds of speculation. But all of this has given rise to some really astounding headlines. Let me just read a few of these that I've come across in the last just 24 hours. Reuters says this: U.S. shoots down mysterious object near Canadian border. Politico headline: the truth is out there, UFO fever grips Congress. Time magazine says U.S. general doesn't rule out aliens as UFOs mount. The Wall Street Journal: as mystery objects get shot down, U.S. sets up task force on UFOs. A CNN, this was an opinion piece that says the strange objects in U.S. airspace may be an even bigger problem than we thought. This is a person that's saying, they could be, again, extraterrestrials. The Chicago Tribune says suspected spy balloons trigger UFO watch over Chicago skies. And the AP had a story that simply had in really big, bold letters, aliens, with a big question mark after it. Cable news programs are filled with discussions right now about UFOs, aliens, extraterrestrials. This afternoon, I was actually listening to a sports radio program, a local sports radio program, and they were talking about UFOs and extraterrestrials, if they're real, what these objects are. Most of you probably have heard the playback of the White House press secretary at the end of a recent press briefing. Here's what she said. And one last thing before I turn it over to the Admiral. I just wanted to make sure we address this from the White House. I know there have been questions and concerns about this, but there is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity with these recent takedowns. Wanted to make sure that the American people knew that, and all of you knew that. And it was important for us to say that from here because we've been hearing a lot about it. Now, she's certainly right. We have been hearing a lot about it. A reporter asked the NORAD commanding officer, General Glenn Van Herk, if the U.S. military has ruled out potential actions by extraterrestrials, and he didn't dismiss the idea. In fact, here's his response. I haven't ruled out anything. At this point, we continue to assess every threat or potential threat, unknown or known, that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it. So all this that's happening is also kind of coming in the wake of a lot more UFO sightings in America. From 2004 to 2020, there are about 144 sightings, UFO sightings reported. So that's a 16-year period. From March 2021 to August of 2022, about a year and a half period, we have 247. So almost double in the last year and a half of what there was in the previous 16 years. Now, some are surmising that these are what's being seen are spy drones, that they may be what's called airborne trash, or some other natural explanations. And for a lot of these 247 that have happened in that 18-month period from March 2021 to August 2022. A lot of those have natural explanations, but there are 171 of them for which no natural explanation has been found. And all this has prompted Florida Senator Marco Rubio to establish the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force 2 years ago. And he's been on a lot of the major cable channels talking a lot about this issue. Now, I have to tell you here, I have no idea what these three objects are that have been taken down. We don't even know for sure if the first one really was a Chinese spy balloon. And I don't profess to know. They may be some spy craft of some kind. They may be airborne trash. Time will tell if we're ever told. We may never know exactly. But what's happening today reminds me a lot of what I've read about and studied a lot about that happened back in 1947. There are a lot of amazing similarities between the last 6 months of 1947 and what we're seeing today. Back in 1947, that was the year that the Cold War began. The Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union. And of course, today we have the United States and Russia. And some people believe that some of these objects may be coming from Russia. Also back in 1947, there was a UFO craze. The whole term flying saucer was coined in June of 1947. There were 300 UFO sightings just in the last 6 months of 1947. Of course, the most famous of all was the July 1947 called the Roswell Incident, where some kind of flaming object crashed outside of the city of Roswell, New Mexico. And the Army was called out to investigate. On July 8th, 1947, the local paper, the Roswell Daily Record, ran this headline: RAAF, that's the Roswell Army Airfield, captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. And they called it a flying disc. This is information the paper had received from the Army officials. Well, the Army quickly retracted that story. In fact, the very next day on July 9th, an Army major was shown with what looked like parts of a weather balloon, saying this was just a weather balloon and nothing more. So it's interesting to me that back in the Roswell incident, they were saying when this crashed, this was a weather balloon. We're being told the same thing today, that these are spy balloons. And you'd think after all these years, they'd have a lot more advanced technology than balloons to carry out surveillance. But I've been through Roswell, New Mexico many times. My in-laws used to have a place there, and we vacation, my family and I vacation in Ruidoso, New Mexico every summer. So I've been going out there for 30 years. I've been to Roswell, New Mexico many, many times. And I've been to all the museums that are there. And I told this story a couple years ago, but on one of these videos, but I want to just reiterate it quickly again. It's very relevant. Once when I was out at the crash site, at what's called the crash site there outside of Roswell, I met a man who was one of the original Army officers or Army men who went out there to look at this site. And he claimed that when he was out there at the site, he saw something, not a weather balloon, not an airplane, nothing like any technology he'd ever seen. And he saw a small craft there, and there were 4 beings there. One was outside the craft, one was half inside and half outside, and 3 were inside. And they were all dead. They were about 5'3", 5'3", 5'4" inches tall. And he told me all this in person. He happened to be out there filming with this program called Strange Universe, and I just met him out there. We talked for probably a half hour or 45 minutes. He told me all of what he had seen there, and he was the last living survivor of the Roswell crash at that time. And so I've thought about this a lot. I've read a lot of books on these topics, and I've thought a lot about what we're seeing today. And I've asked myself the question: what do we make of all this? My view is much of this could be demonic. I believe there's a surge of demonic activity in the end times in the book of Revelation. We go to the subscriber only section here in a moment. I want to answer a question about that. How do we know that? But I think we're beginning to see the buildup of that today. And whether that first object that was shot down was a Chinese spy balloon, certainly demonic spirits could seize on this and cause other objects to be seen and created and manufactured to seize on this hysteria, to breed further fear and anxiety and confusion. Satan is the master deceiver. And this could be an attempt of mass deception to distract people even more from Christ and from eternity, and to promote the theory of evolution, that there's beings that have evolved on other planets. This could also be used both now, but even more in the future, to create a common enemy. The satanic forces will create a common enemy for the world to unite against. This idea that, somehow these are, beings from another planet, could be used by the Antichrist and leveraged by him to unite the world. It could be part of the setup to explain after the rapture takes place what happened. That all these people were taken away in some kind of an extraterrestrial evacuation or seizure. But the bottom line for me is there's too much that's unexplained in all of this to me to be human activity. And I don't believe in intelligent alien life on other planets. Aliens and beings on other planets are never mentioned in the Bible. And you think if these creatures are fallen like we are, then what about their redemption? Jesus would have to come and die for them. Also, these objects that are seen don't show up from outer space. They just often appear and they disappear, as if they're kind of coming from another dimension. And the number one aim of Satan and demons is deception. So UFOs and extraterrestrials and aliens, all of this fits Satan's MO perfectly. So look, what we're witnessing right now may all end up having a very clear natural explanation. But we can expect the demonic hosts to continue to seize every opportunity they have to deceive and distract humanity. Now, I think it's interesting, Jimmy Evans' new book is titled Look Up. And people everywhere are looking up, literally. People's eyes are on the sky now. But with all that's happening, you and I want to make sure that we're looking up, that we're looking and longing for the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. It may be very soon. I sure hope it is. Well, thank you so much for watching. Right now, we're going to go into the subscriber-only portion where I'm going to answer some questions about, where do demons come from? I mean, how many demons are there? Is there going to be a surge of demonic activity in the end time? And if so, where does the Bible say that? So if you're not a subscriber, I want to encourage you to do that. You can go to endtimes.com and sign up for $7 a month, and I think it'll be $7 well spent. I think you'll really enjoy all the archive material as well as the new material that's coming forth there. So hold on just for a moment, and we'll be right back, and we'll go into the subscriber section.